I think we're losing our humanness in this conversation. Everything's Zoom, everything's virtual, everything is distance. When you wear a mask, you can't see smiles. Our facial expressions tell such a story and carry so much energy. You can call me a conspiracy theorist, but it sure looks like the things in motion right now could be in an effort to keep us away from one another. No gatherings. Stay away from coming together. What is that? Why is it that there's this silent killer? Or now after months of looking at data, is there something else going on? And you just start asking questions with other people. And I think those questions lead us closer to truth.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey, Hilda here. Sometimes we think we have to do one ginormous thing to make a difference in the world. But even a single drop in the bucket is one more drop that together with other drops can fill it to overflowing. This is episode 279, and our guest today is Dr. Devin Vrana. Devin is the owner of Light House Chiropractic and Acupuncture in Wichita, Kansas. She is a chiropractor, an entrepreneur, and the host of the If They Knew podcast. Today, Devin points to the small steps we can take to regain our health freedom rights. She discusses the restrictions that have limited our medical freedom and the agenda that may be behind them. Devin talks about how our societal conditioning makes it far too easy to comply with rules, even when they violate our human rights. In light of all of this, she reminds us that we can each do what it takes to stay strong in the midst of the challenges facing us today. I interviewed Devin shortly after the Health Freedom Revival in Kansas this past fall, and she herself helped to organize it. This is the second to last podcast on the health freedom track, by the way. Before we get into the conversation, I have good news. We are planning a kind of flash one-day conference event for this Sunday, November 15th at Joel Salatin's farm, Polyface. We are determined to get together, even if we have to sit on hay bales in the hoop house to do so. And we will do that. It's going to be tons of fun, so join us. Go to the event page on our website, westonaprice.org, for details. And even if you can't make it in person, you may still be able to participate virtually. I hope to see you there. And another way to stay connected with us is to become a member of the foundation. Right now, you can become a member for only $30 a year using the discount code WAPF10. You will receive the quarterly journal and other membership perks, like being a part of our private Facebook group, participating in monthly Wise Conversations Zoom calls, and much more. Plus, you can just feel good knowing that you are supporting the important work of education, research, and activism of the Weston A. Price Foundation. So go to westonaprice.org and click on the Member Yet button and use the code WAPF10 and you're in. Welcome to the family. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Devin.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yesterday was phenomenal. We were here at the Health Freedom Revival, and it was something to behold here in Kansas.
Oh my goodness. I'm still catching my breath. I'm high on all the feels because it was truly beyond words.
Tell people some of the guests who came and what the focus was.
So we had the big three, Del Bigtree, Andy Wakefield, and Bobby Kennedy. And then we hosted a variety of speakers to speak on the Constitution and dentistry and the land, vaccines, medical freedom, doctors and experts from local resources, but then also from all across the country. I will absolutely pay shout out to one of my favorite highlights, which was the moms who shared, which everyone says we want to hear from the experts. And I think in a conversation around health freedom, the families that have really paid the price and that have lived it, they're my heroes. They're my experts.
And they're the ones that I think Andy and Del and others have told me are so often kind of judged and overlooked, aren't they? The ones with the personal stories and experiences with their own children.
Absolutely. I think that was strategic marketing really on opposition side to label those people the anti-vaxxers, because you take these heart-wrenching sob stories that these women share, and you give them a label like anti-vaxxers, and it makes people not hear them anymore. So I think that was a strategic move. But these women, these families, they won't be silenced. And that was spoken beautifully yesterday. So they stood to that stage in front of that large audience, and with the big three, with Ty and Charlene Bollinger momentums behind them going, we're going to make sure you guys get access to your voice being heard by all.
Now, you're a chiropractor. How did you get wrapped up in this health freedom movement?
Oh, man. Well, I am a chiropractor. My husband's a chiropractor. Sister's a chiropractor. Brother's a chiropractor. But I started chiropractic school. I'd never been adjusted before. I grew up just, I guess, like everybody else, kind of in the traditional box. And I had my first son at 21. And I was pre-med, pre-dentistry, and knew I wanted to help people, just didn't know how. And he had a really rough birth, forceps. He cried all the time, and I was putting myself through school. We had a lot, and he wasn't a sick kid, but he was never well. And each time we would go to his well check, he would get sick. And so I just innately kind of started to parent differently and ask different questions. And that landed me in a conversation around chiropractic school. I went to chiropractic school. I started getting exposed to all these conversations about alternative health, about acupuncture, about the power being inside you, not in a potion or pill. And my whole world shifted.
What do you mean the power inside you? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, man. So from a chiropractic standpoint, you look at the brain and body connection. It controls everything. And so whether you're talking about pain or sickness, oftentimes we look outside for a treatment instead of looking internally to the power of our own human frame and how we can nurture it as a powerful being instead of something that's broken and needs fixed. And I believe that part of our cultural shift that needs to happen is that people need to remember that their power's inside, and they were two cells that became a baby, became a toddler, teenager, and if they really are a walking, living, breathing miracle. And their power is only limited when they outsource it. And that's really what brought me in the health freedom, because you see how much money is made betting on people's weakness. And I want to shift things where we start betting on people's strength.
Betting on people's weakness? What do you mean by that?
So, yeah, I mean, it's like you see the different pharmaceutical games. You see the different from the very get-go with babies where they're no sooner out of the womb and we're injecting them with vaccines, but they're born perfect. And so it's like there is this like within our culture, this outsourced health. My health is out there. I've got to go to the doctor so they can fix me. When in reality, it's the power inside us, our nervous system, our miracle of life that I think people need to understand a little bit more through meditation, through good, vibrant living diet, and really, reclaiming who they are.
What shifts have you seen? Maybe you can just tell us one story of a patient who's come to you and a shift where they suddenly recognize that power within that you're describing.
Well, so I'll give a nod right there to Rachel, who spoke yesterday. She's a mom of 4 boys in my practice, and they came in and she shared beautifully yesterday. They did things kind of by the traditional book. They went to all the well child checks. They did what they were told instead of what they chose. Big difference, changes the entire game of life and health. And that landed them in a really tough spot. And as she shared with her son, Baker, they did what they were supposed to. And he, is vaccine injured. He's on the autism spectrum. He was limited in diet. He just said mom for the first time a few days ago. But what she has learned through a very painful journey is that when she stepped into responsibility as a mother for her own health, but also for their family to be the decision makers, to be the deciders of their destiny, it gave them freedom of choice instead of just doing status quo and going through the motions.
But it's almost like we've been indoctrinated or programmed to do what we've been told, from when we're in school and we have to raise our hand to go to the bathroom, to when we're parking a car and there's a sign that says don't park here at certain times. And we've been taught to follow the rules mostly. So it's really hard to break out of that paradigm, I think.
Oh my goodness. You hit it perfectly. And I think what we're feeling right now in 2020 is a tightening of those screws. It's not actually any different. It's just fall in line on a whole new volume, right? And so it's compliance instead of cooperation. But the land of the free does not comply. if there's not proper science and justice behind it. And that's why there's this rise coming up of, yes, we can sit. I have no problem being a good student or raising my hand if it's justified. But what I think we're experiencing right now is that there's a force with it. And I think people have had it.
Now, you said something about science. Some people would say, well, the science seems to be showing there's a virus spreading. We need to wear masks. We need to social distance. Why are you going against that science?
Yeah. So I spoke in front of our county commission a few weeks ago, a 3-minute testimony that I got. And what I held up for them was a quarter. And I said, for every heads, there's a tails. So there's my science that looks this way. And there's your science that looks that way, because that's when we haven't had enough time to know. But in reality, there's a center line, and that's called truth. And we should all be seekers of the truth. And so science is only as good as the data that it collects and the methods in which it was done. And then the time that we're given to really look at it. And time isn't a luxury, I guess, that we've had yet, but truth is truth. And what I think is being exposed is not if science looks this way or that way, or if distancing or masks. Truth will speak for itself. And, we had a gathering with hundreds of people, and time will tell. And I'm not saying there's never been a time without viruses. There'll never be a time without viruses, but we've also never tested asymptomatic people. And I just don't believe truth is behind what we're being told. It feels a lot more like force.
And you've had enough information from those who've explained the problem with vaccines, and let alone a rushed vaccine. In other words, the history seems to point to the fact that they are more risky than beneficial, right?
Absolutely. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that it started out with good intentions, right? But now there's so much money behind it. And you can look at Vioxx, you can look at 1,000 other pharmaceutical errors and deaths. I mean, when you look at the rates of medical error, it's wildly disturbing. But then you have this blanket covering over vaccines that we literally, in my opinion, assault children with from the second they arrive here, and then continuously until before they're teenagers, which I think is calculated, because it's like we do it before they gain the momentum to say no. And it's wrong. It's just wrong.
And yet, if a person wants to vaccinate their children, they should have the right to do so just as much as a person who doesn't want to vaccinate their children should have the right to deny that for their children.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, like I said, when I spoke in front of the county commission, or if I speak anywhere on health freedom, I'll stand for just as much as I would stand with the person who's against. It's like I stand for freedom, which holds both sides of that coin I talked about. What I think will happen in the vaccine conversation, though, is that right now people are making choices without all the information. And so that's why I'm grateful for things like yesterday and movements like 1986, the Act, and Highwire and Children's Health Defenses. I am all for choice, but more importantly, I'm for informed choice. And we haven't arrived there yet. So I think a lot of families are making decisions without proper resources or access to information that may lead them a different way.
And can we put a list of resources in the show notes? I know at the Kansans for Health Freedom in the program, you had a long list of a bunch of different groups that we could align ourselves with to get more informed about what our freedoms are and what the options are with our health.
That was such an inspiration. I helped put together the booklet. Kansans for Health Freedom sent me resources and I formatted it. And what it got me going, I'm working on a link tree for my social media that you'll be able to click on and go right to that so you can access all of that good stuff.
Any state you live in the U.S., et cetera, right?
That's right. We had the groups that stand for health freedom, different documentaries, articles, people to follow on social media, because essentially this is a solo journey. There is a collective of people that are together so you don't feel alone. But at the end of the day, it's your health, it's your responsibility, and you're going to have to follow the breadcrumbs on your own journey to make it what you want it.
Coming up, Devin dives into the consequences of mask mandates.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Mountain Rose Herbs. Mountain Rose Herbs offers high-quality, organically grown herbs, spices, teas, and botanical goods. They are big on the things that we all care about, quality. Their products are certified organic, vibrant, tasty, and proven safe. Responsible sourcing from organic farmers and wild harvesters is their hallmark. And they offer a variety of products including essential oils, candles, soaps, and more. Plus, they've earned a zero waste certification in Oregon. So go to Mountain Rose Herbs at mountainroseherbs.com and place an order today. That's mountainroseherbs.com. Hey, and though we had to cancel our Wise Traditions conference this year, you can still learn from great speakers from past conferences. Until November 21st, you can get 50% off all of our conference recordings. You can order individual talks or a whole conference package. Watch alone or get a group together to learn and discuss, and maybe even share a meal. So go to fleetwoodonsite.com/wise to order and use the coupon code WAP50 during checkout to get your discount. The offer ends November 21st, so act fast. Again, go to fleetwoodonsite.com/wise and use the coupon code WAP50. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Now let's talk for a moment about how there are a group of doctors, you told me, in this area that meets every other week to talk about this topic. How did that get started?
So a local business owner, Marty, with Songbird Juice here in Wichita, Kansas, came to me and said, hey, I feel like there's some of us that need to get together and talk about what's going on. This was back in June, and it was when things were heating up around doing a forced mask mandate. And so we just wanted to talk about truth. So we got together with one of the city council members, and there was an integrative medicine doc, a homeopathic doctor, and multiple chiropractors, and then a collection of researchers. And we just started going, okay, what's going on? What's really going on? And then it grew. And then there were some concerned citizens that also were just advocates for choice and advocates for truth. And last week, the week before the Freedom Revival, we had 120 people come forward to speak at the city council meeting to say no more forced mandates. It was jaw-dropping, amazing to watch testimony after testimony. Men, women, children got up and spoke. Retired vets that say, I fought for a war and I fought for freedom. You can't force me to do these things. And so if we're talking about a mask, if we're talking about a vaccine, give me the information and then step aside and let me make my own choice. And it was so beautiful. So there was 120 people that came together last week for city. And then today there was close to 40 that spoke in front of the county commission. So, you know, you guys are going to hear a lot about the heartland, and there's something to be said about being from here. We're simple people, but we're rooted and we know right from wrong. And we're not afraid to stand up when justice is in the scale, in the balance.
I was going to ask you, why Kansas? Why Kansas? You kind of answered that.
Yeah, I mean, we're, you know, at people, when I tell them, when I go places and they meet me and they say, where are you from? I say, Wichita. I'm like, Kansas? You know, and I love going to the big cities. I love traveling, but I love home. And that whole Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, as cheesy as it is, that there's no place like home. There's really not. I mean, people are very simple here. And it's because, you know, we do walk barefoot in the grass and we do roam on the plains and we do, I don't know, life is slower and more simple here. And I think we're pretty dang good at sniffing out BS. And we don't stand for it. And I'm very proud of my city and very proud of my state and very proud of the momentum you're going to continue to see from us.
Tell me about the mandates you do have in place right now.
Yeah. So in our city and county, there is a forced mask mandate. They actually, just the night before the Freedom Revival in the city of Wichita and the county of Sedgwick County, they took it from a voluntary order to a mandatory order, really just trying to, I think, bully businesses that weren't cooperating to the extent they wanted it to, or people, because it's, to my understanding, it's not law and it can't, that's why people can't be ticketed for it, you know, but my worry is it's creating almost a civil war because, you know, businesses just want their doors to be open. My gosh, like everybody's been through so much at this point and all they want to do is be open. So if they say, these are the rules, I have to, but then people want their rights, then all of a sudden you have two people that probably want the same thing at war with one another. And that's where I call to local officials, regardless of city or state. And I say, I love from Remember the Titans when he says attitude reflects leadership. And I think this unrest in our communities absolutely stems from leadership needing to step up their game and do better to hear from their people.
And so apparently you all have been speaking up. Do you see hope for this to be reversed, this mandate?
So right now it's set for October 21st and kind of like yesterday with I see it already done. And what I saw in people's eyes on that day at the city council meeting and yesterday at the Freedom Revival is just that, freedom revived. And people are alive and they are awake and they are ready to stand together and solo. And so regardless of what the current powers that be do, I know the people are ready to continue the mission. And I think you'll see a big change in leadership as election time comes around, because they're going to have to lay in the beds they've made and people aren't happy. So I think, I've been asked, I don't even know how many times, would you ever run for office? And I don't know, but I know I'm not a complainer. I won't sit on the sidelines and complain about what's being done. I will step boldly into the arena to do my part.
Well, talking politics makes me think of that phrase, the silent majority. And isn't it true that there are some people who wish they could speak up about not wanting this mask mandate, but they're kind of afraid of what their neighbors might say?
It just circles us back to something you said earlier about sit in your chair, don't talk, be seen and not heard, raise your hand if you want to speak. And I don't remember who said it yesterday, but I feel like it was, I'm going to have to look it up. And they said that's what created the silent majority. So we have a culture of people who have been taught and conditioned to be seen and not heard. And I think that tipping point's about to reverse the other way. What I saw yesterday was a dancing majority. It was a vocal majority. It wasn't a live and happy and joyful majority. And I just want to be a part of that revolution more than anything.
Can you tell us another story of maybe someone that was once silent and then decided to speak up?
So I can think of a few different people, even just from that city council meeting where, like Marty, for instance, just probably if you just met her off the street, you would go, wow, she's really sassy. She's really outspoken. But she was victimized when she was younger. And when I entered the county courthouse with her, we both spoke in front of the county commission together. They asked us to wear the shields to get through the entrance of the lobby. And so we cooperated just to get through that portion to go up. We put on the little headband and the shield over our face. And then they asked us to put on a mask underneath it. And we both said, no, we're wearing the shields. And she started to have a panic attack. And what you have to understand is what you see in a present moment doesn't tell a whole story ever, right? My mom's favorite quote was, be kind, for everyone you know is fighting a hard battle. And what Marty was able to voice post the event was abuse that she had been through, was years of, after being abused. And the mask for her brought her back to her trauma. It created a PTSD. And so Marty is one of many people I know that pain in her, that angst, that rage of being forced to do something that is wrong inside her system. You hit a breaking point. I'll bend, and then break. And that's, I think she has been such an inspiration because she hit that point and she's doing it as tactfully, gracefully, and compassionately as she can. But when you feel wrong in your system, going with it creates dis-ease in your own system. And so she's ready to get it out. And that means speaking up.
Now, what about those people who wish they could speak up, but really are too timid or just don't feel like that's their calling in particular? What are ways in which they can be health freedom advocates?
Yeah. So see what level you're on, right? So if we say there's level 0 and there's level 10, right? Bobby, Andy, Dell, what? Probably a 10, right? I mean, they're out there, they're in it. But then you have people that are just clicking on things. They're not liking, they're not loving, they're not emojiing at all. They're certainly not commenting. Just go up a level, hit the like button, and if you're a liker, then become a share person. And if you're a share person, do a live. And if you're a live person, start creating more conversations, maybe do just wherever you're at, take it one step up and meet this conversation. And don't feel like you have to go change the world by yourself, because yes, it's your solo mission, like I said, but there is a collective. And so if we all cranked up the dial just one notch together, exponentially, what does that even look like? And so I think sometimes we make growth scarier than it doesn't have to be a leap out of our comfort zone. It just has to be one step.
And you know what I do sometimes is I just start a conversation. I find a common ground. Like if I'm with an Uber driver and I'm like, I just want the windows down. I like the fresh air. And I might make a little comment and just one little thing that we have in common. And suddenly I'm finding that they're skeptical about masks too, or something like that, right?
Yeah. And it's like you just said, you make it human again, right? Right now, everything is Zoom. I had a patient in my office this morning, a young girl. She's a high school senior, and they're getting a course right now about how it's so important to get TikTok and Snapchat on your phones, and how they need to get on social media to be social and stay away from their friends. They're getting trained this in their high school, in my hometown. And I was so angry, and I had to ask myself, why does that? And it's just, I think we're losing our humanness in this conversation. Everything's Zoom, everything's virtual, everything is distance. When you wear a mask, you can't see smiles. Our facial expressions tell such a story and carry so much energy. You can call me a conspiracy theorist, but it sure looks like the things in motion right now could be in an effort to keep us away from one another. No gatherings. Stay away from coming together. What is that? Why is it that there's this silent killer? Or now after months of looking at data, is there something else going on? And you just start asking questions with other people. And I think those questions lead us closer to truth.
Some people ask me sometimes how my kids have turned out. How about your kids? You have 5, is that right?
I do. I've got twin 4-year-olds, boy, girl, and twin 9-year-olds, 2 boys, and then a 15-year-old. So I've got the gamut right now. Good grief. I'll take this moment to send a prayer and send lots of light out to the mama bears out there, because moms are facing all the things right now. They're not just feeling it on their own level, but now they have to make all these decisions for their children and their home. My 4-year-olds are not in school. We have a nanny at home, and I decided to go ahead and pull the 9-year-olds as well. So we're going to unschool and homeschool our own way, which has been a big shift. I work. And so how do I reroute my schedule and my priorities? And then my 15-year-old's doing online because he's very established on his athletic teams in school. So to stay eligible for athletics, he's doing their online version. So guiding him and being with him through that, because they want kids on a screen for 6 hours. And that's not good. So navigating, okay, this is all shifting. How do we make fly decisions? And I don't just make them for them. If I could give any advice, because by no means do I have it down, but we're using this time to do life together. So I'm asking my 9-year-olds, I'm asking my 15-year-old, like, what do you think of all of this? Like, not just what do we do on the defense, but what do we choose as our offense? Because one of our foundational things in our family is there's no victims. So it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. So if we're here, we have the power of choice in how we react to it. And so I got to live that truth right now with them. And we're just creating a space that's congruent with our beliefs. And when it comes to diet, we keep it as simple as we can. If God made it, it's good for you. If man made it, you might want to watch it. And so we do the best we can. My husband's a chiropractor as well, like I said, so everybody gets adjusted regularly. My kids don't go to doctors. After my firstborn, and I learned so much from him, my other 4 are just vibrantly healthy and alive. And if something's going on, they lay on the floor and say, Mom, can you pop my back? Mom, can I get an adjustment? Mom, do you have your oils? Their normal probably looks very different than the average. And I love that. And that mainly, I lost my mom in 2016. So I know what it's like to live life without a mother. And so I want to, if I do have to slow down my work to be present now during homeschool or what we make that look like, that's a gift, not a curse. And maybe God's sending mothers back into their homes of sorts. And so I'm just soaking it up the best that I can and enjoying it and taking time that if I were to leave the earth and go to heaven tomorrow, they would have the most foundational truth, which we've already talked about, that their power's on the inside and that they're powerful beyond measure and that life is for living and to seek that with all they can.
Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, but I'm going to rephrase my question because I don't want to out the one of my kids that isn't, I made it sound bad. So how do you as a mom, I know you have 5 kids, how are you raising critical thinkers at this time? Boom, that's the question for that. And now I'm going to ask you, I love when you said the space or creating the world we want to live in. I think it's really important at this time to stay positive because there's a lot of fear out there, isn't there?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness gracious. And seek and you will find, right? And it's what you seek is seeking you, right? There's all those cliche quotes, but they're so true. And one of my favorite mentors, Dr. Steve Hayes, said, always try to be what you're for, not what you're against. And that will lead you closer to joy and peace. And that's what my family and I are trying to do.
Well, you are radiating it, Devin. I really think so. Now, let me ask you the question I often pose at the end. If the listener could do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do?
Go find a mirror and look into your eyes. Look beyond all the imperfections and things that we normally look at. Go to the eyes, the glitter in the eyes, the spark in the eyes, the God in your eyes, and say, I love you. Say, I'm sorry. Say, I forgive you. The Ho'oponopono prayer, and say thank you. And for whatever was behind you, let it be behind you. and look deep into those eyes and say, from now on, we do better. And then just do a little better from there. I really think that's it. That's it. Falling back in love with yourself, forgiving yourself, and making yourself a promise to be better tomorrow than you were today.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that prayer and for sharing your life, Devin. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been such a joy to meet you and ... because I know we're going to stay connected for many years to come.
Absolutely. We're on the same team. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Our guest today was Dr. Devin Vrana. Visit her website, devinvrana.com. And I'm Hilda Labrada Gore. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the transcript for this episode, visit our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And now for a recent review from Apple Podcasts, Haven of Integrity. As a practitioner of Chinese medicine, it brings me so much hope and peace to know that the Weston Price Foundation has integrity during this paradigm shift. I have seen far too many health food stores, health practitioners, and individuals who previously touted the power of the human body, free thinking, critical thinking, open-mindedness, medicines beyond Western medicine, spreading compassion and love, people who now have zero integrity and allow themselves to be controlled by fear. I have so much compassion for them as I know how destructive fear can be to our psyche, and at the same time, I'm going to remember who is in touch with their inner knowing and intuition, who is truly a free thinker, who has had the courage to speak truth in the face of adversity, and who isn't controlled by force and fear. These will be those who change the world. And they always have been. And the Weston A. Price Foundation will be one organization contributing to a better world. Thank you for your courage. KOD, these words mean a lot. Please feel free to rate and review us as well on Apple Podcasts. Your words can encourage us and let folks know that the show is worth listening to. Thank you so much for listening. I wish you the best. Stay well, my friend. Hasta pronto.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.